Very warm welcome to everybody. My name is Ram Balasubramanian. I am Vice President of Technology at a leading asset management firm and an Art of Living instructor. And here today on behalf of the Blessed Channel Project, um, it is my great honor to introduce long-standing full-time senior faculty and the first Art of Living instructor in the United States, Janael McQueen, who's joining us today from Northern California. Janelle studied psychology and worked in that field before transitioning to Art of Living full time. A very warm welcome to you, Janelle.
You.
So, Janelle, let's start the conversation um, by asking you what does blessing mean to you?
Where to begin? It blessing. It's such a big thing when you feel blessed, when you feel like there's light shining inside of you, and you just feel blessed. It's a little like bliss, blissed. And we think of blessing as something you ask for, but maybe it's something that's already there. And it's a process of finding it, stumbling upon it. And if you have somebody like Guruji in your life, you have somebody to show you it, expose it for you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Over the years, Janelle, you must have seen many people with struggles, challenges, conflicts. Do you feel that the art of living and the positive energy that it brings um, has been helpful in their journey towards healing?
Yeah, that's part of the blessing of being a teacher of the art of living, because you watch over and over as people come out of their patterns of heaviness, stuckness, and just burst into their own creativity and an expression of their own love. And it's so wonderful. One of the reasons I wanted to become a teacher rather than just practice psychology was because I saw so many sad, depressed college students. It started to be a thing about 25 years ago, students being very depressed and sad and not being able to find their joy. And I was very concerned about that. So I decided to leave the slow path of psychology where you sit and you talk and you talk and you talk. And maybe some changes are made over months, over years, to a place where it could happen so rapidly with Gurudev. Within an hour, sometimes people were transformed. And that was marvelous to see and to be able to bring, especially to students, to everyone. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Janelle, for that. Um, Now, are there some stories, Janelle, that comes to your mind where you saw a transformation unfolding in front of you? or a positive difference that came upon an individual, when you were teaching or interacting with people during your art of living tenure?
But over and over and over. Yeah. I saw how people would come to the course and they would just go out joyous and different. And then their friends would come, and then everybody wanted to be together to celebrate. Uh, it was remarkable. And I saw sometimes people with real depression problems come out of those and be able to stay at college and be able to stay in school. Um, yes, I saw many examples. I'm trying to think of one. Maybe myself. There was a woman when I came to the Art of Living. She was from the Middle East. She was very difficult for everyone, but she especially aimed most of her insults at me. And I had to learn to deal with it. She would do things like, if Guruji asked me to cook for the group, it was a large group, and I'm not a great cook, but he asked me to do it. Somebody needed to do it. I would prepare the meal. She would come into the dining hall and say, "Oh, are you people going to eat that food with all that stress in it?" From Janael McQueen. And I had to learn to not get upset, not let it affect my mood. And it was very funny because the day came when she absolutely slapped me right across the face. And the strangest thing happened. Talk about blessings. I became blissed out. I could not get angry. It was only funny and joyful. And after that, I could only look at her and feel so much joy. And yes, it was a blessing.
That is so beautiful. Um, Now, Janelle, has there been a time where you seeked a blessing, and how did that turn out? You sought blessings from the divine, from Gurudev, and how did that turn out?
I don't know that I ever sought them. They they just came. Um, Before I met Guruji, I was reading books by Therese of Lisieux, who's a saint from France, and I was very drawn to the stories of Jesus. I started in a Jewish family, and I was very well versed in the Old Testament. In fact, I'd read it on my own like 3 times. But even in later high school, I didn't know the New Testament. I didn't know anything about Jesus. And when I read the New Testament, I was blown away because instead of saying things like give like for like, it would say things like turn the other cheek.
Mm.
And it was amazing. And then I became very interested in the Catholic saints, and they felt that they were living with Jesus. They felt his presence and his aliveness in their everyday lives. And I longed so much for that. But I didn't think it would be something that would be afforded to me ever. Um, So when I met Guruji, he was so much like Jesus. That was the first thing I felt. And his presence in my life was like that. And it was amazing that I had read about Therese imagining in her mind being with Jesus and what she would have done and how much she loved him. And yet I had Jesus right there. It is amazing. Miracle. So I don't think I ever asked. I think I just felt that it filled me. And I think that's the experience of many people who go near to Gurudev. Just being in his presence, even being in a hall with him, it's mind blowing because it's not just words, it's something that grabs you, you know. It just fills your heart and it changes your behavior and your way of looking at the world. And you feel very blessed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get to appreciate more and more what you have
Mhm.
and ask for less and less and less. Maybe that's what enlightenment is, knowing that you have everything and there's nothing more that needs to be there.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Janelle, take us back to the time when you were practicing psychology. What were the practicing norms in those times? Um,
Well, a lot of it was sitting and talking and talking and talking and talking. And I thought it was very wonderful when I thought it was the only thing available because people got a chance to talk, to express their sadness, to move through it. And it was a wonderful thing. And it was just after I had spent so many years learning how to do it and being with people and loving it very much. And then I ran into Guruji, and you could go into a hall, follow his instructions, do a breathing technique, and everything changed. And I couldn't but follow him. I couldn't no longer honestly sit in a chair and go over everybody's traumas with them. It just seemed like it wasn't necessary anymore after he brought the breathing and the meditation combination that he brought, and the way he expressed it, and the way he brought the energy into the room for you. He saturated you with it. You didn't have to think about maybe attaining that someday. He would give it to you right there. It was very amazing. So I decided not to do sitting in the chair and talking anymore.
and when did you meet Gurudev first, the founder of the Art of Living?
Well, I first met him. One of my clients called me up and said, "There's somebody that you should meet." And I said, "No, thank you. It's too far away because I'd have to drive 3 hours to get there. Didn't want to do that." She kept calling and she left messages on my machine. And my children, who were about 16 and 18 at the time, listened to the messages, and she was saying, "This wonderful person is coming." And these were the same kids who were saying to me, Oh, you're not going to go see some spiritual leader, are you? Not again. But they listened to her message. And then my daughter came to me and said, Claire says that you should go up and see Sri Ravi Shankar. He wasn't called that then. He was just called Ravi Shankar, I think. Panditji. It's called Panditji. And I thought that was strange. And she said, in fact, I'll go with you and I'll take my little brother too. So we all drove up. And when we got up to San Francisco, I said, you know, I'm very tired. You go and listen to his talk. If you like it, I'll go to his course in the morning. So the kids went off. They spent the evening there. And when my 16-year-old came back home, he said, Mom, he's just like Jesus. You have to go. So that's how it all started.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Um, would love to hear some stories um, of grace from you, as you must have had multiple interactions with Gurudev over all these years.
You know, it's hard to think of a story. So many things come in my mind. Um,
Doesn't have to be a story. You can tell whatever.
um, he was he was always so magical. You know, the somebody who was helping me set up today said, "Do you remember the time when we drove up to the ashram in Canada?
Mhm.
That's a pretty long drive. I guess I was in Massachusetts at the time, and we drove and drove and drove. And nobody knew that we were going up there. Nobody had been told. And I said to Kathy, if we get up there and he says, I knew you were coming, I'll be happy for the rest of my life." That's what she told me. And she said, when we got there, you went in to say hello to him, and that's what he said. So that was fun. Um, and I saw people who just were, people, life becomes so hard and dull and so many challenges. And just to know that there's a breathing technique that you can do that blows all that away. And for people to come to take the courses and then leave so happy. It was it was always a miracle. It was always, but then it becomes not a miracle because it's always happening. And I saw so many people become happier. Is that, let's see, who can I think of? Um, can you cut this out of the tape?
You're going in a flow. Good.
I
Mhm.
can't to think of a specific story. It's been many years. Um, I know I know so many people now who live their lives so happily, and I know many people who don't. But those people who are really happy now are often art of living people. And they just shine and they're very, it's a matter of seeing the glory of life and knowing the blessing while it's happening, rather than having to always be longing for something different. And I know a lot of people like that now who have become that way because of Art of Living.
Very true. Very true. Janelle, we recall that you said um, Gurudev was kind of way ahead of his time in terms of, bringing in breathing and meditation practices into the
Uh,
West world.
Nobody thought about breathing then. Believe me, when we went around talking about breathing, people thought we were crazy. There was no such thing. Now, everybody will say to you, well, I do breathing and meditation. Or, yes, I breathe in 4 and I hold 4 and I feel great. People will say things like that now because everything has a breathing component now. If you go to take yoga, you'll do breathing. If you're ill and you go to courses at a doctor's office, they'll do breathing. But didn't used to be so. 20, 30 years ago, it was very new. And the idea of doing the breathing and then the meditation made a huge difference for people because with just the meditation, many of them remained kind of in the same place. When the two came together, it would just explode them out into a different space somehow. And that was the beginning of people realizing how important it was to do that breathing. And maybe some people did it in the depths of spiritual teachers, school somewhere. But most people had not heard of breathing as a method for going inside. I think Guruji I think he changed things a lot in that regard. Now everybody acts as if it's just a normal thing, which is nice.
Indeed. Janelle, how do you feel these practices um, made a difference in your life and perhaps even
In my
other
life.
things that you do?
So many differences. You feel more uplifted. You feel, Guruji's, an important part of Guruji's teaching is that we are made up of a thing called love. And when I first heard him say that, I couldn't believe that. That was not my experience. And it takes a while to understand that, to live that. But with the help of his words and his methods, it became a real possibility. And I certainly felt that in my life. Not as quick to be upset um, about anything, and just feeling more joy inside and feeling that it is what we're made up of. I know you feel that.
That's beautifully said. Janelle, in these challenging times for many, from a person with a background in psychology, how would you advise people to cope with the stressful world today and this busy pace in which we live?
Well, I would advise Trump to take the course and go on a 2-week retreat. Um, yeah, today is a hard time. And I think the best thing for people is to do some meditation some yoga, um, and to learn the principles, to hear it until it becomes believable. And people don't have time and people don't have money. It becomes very hard. And I hope that it still continues to grow in spite of that with Americans as well as with Indians. Yeah, because they have more of a base on which to place it when they first encounter it. For Americans, sometimes it takes a little longer, but so worthwhile. Yeah, I don't see how you can be very healthy without it, without some sort of meditation and breathing techniques in your life.
Very true. Janelle,
Mhm.
you were the first art of living teacher in the United States. Every time I speak with you, it kind of blows my mind to think you were the first art of living. I'm speaking with the first art of living teacher in the United States.
Yeah.
But tell me, how was it, becoming that first teacher
There
in
were a few
the country and your
people,
experience?
there were a few people who'd been in TM for a long time, and they started teaching what they felt was the art of living course earlier than I did. When Guruji came to me, I was shocked because he said, you know, a lot of people are going to come and take this course, and we need a lot of teachers. And I didn't know what he meant. First of all, I didn't know he was teaching anything that was a course. It felt like we were just sitting with him and he was talking about truths of life. And I didn't, it was partially his example because he was sitting there flooding the room with the most beautiful vibrations. You would just be sitting there feeling like you were in an ocean of love. And I didn't really see how other people could do that. So he said to me, we have to teach this. We have to make teachers and we have to teach this knowledge. What? What would we be teaching? And how could we teach that? As opposed to him, I couldn't see it, but he kept asking for it. And slowly, slowly, it happened. And I had to learn, I guess each of us had to learn how to be able to say the things that he was saying and not feel like a complete fake. And maybe that's the process of teachers training. So he got me thinking, how can we give this to people so that they can give it out? And it was a fascinating period of my life because I had to find out how to do that. And mostly we just wrote down his words and then said them and then went into what were the changes happening in us and how we saw that, how we experienced those things. So that for those people who wanted to go deeper into it, it was a wonderful way because we were going into the words that he was saying and we began to feel the feelings he was having at the same time he was bringing his presence to affect us, to move us upward. Very amazing, very blessed, very blessed time and experience in my life, and very wonderful. And people, we rose to it. We had to. And it started to happen because a lot of it had to do with awareness. It was already there, but so easy to miss and so easy to worry and fume and carry on about what wasn't there. You could miss what was there. And I think sitting down with him when he first started talking, he was leading us to look inward. The way he spoke, the rate, the slow rate at which he spoke, and the things that he said, and the way he laughed and made it all so much fun. It was just a real awakening. And it continued to be that way. It continues to be that way. Yeah.
Very beautiful. And how is it being with an enlightened master? And at that time, it was only a few people around him, unlike today. How was, do you think about those days and reminisce and feel, hey, that
So
was amazing days with only a few people
so
and all those
blessed.
experiences?
But I remember the first time I walked into a hall of maybe 1,000 people, and I said, "Oh, I don't want to go here because this is not how I know Gurudev." I walked into the hall and was like, because it was everywhere. He was everywhere. And in that hall, the vibrations were so high that it could change anyone. And I realized you don't have to be right next to him. But it was a wonderful time for me to be able to be right next to him, to watch what he did when a lot of people gave him a hard time. And he handled it so beautifully and smoothly. And yeah, it was just inspiration after inspiration. And to see him now in a hall of thousands of people and such an energy. I was very lucky to be able to be right there with him. And he would say, he had a way of saying exactly what you needed at the right time. I remember once he said to me, I was saying, Guruji, I finally understood there's nothing else I want in this life except enlightenment. I, I no longer want anything else. You know what he said to me? He said, wanting enlightenment is the same thing as wanting a Cadillac. It would just change your whole way of thinking and really move you to the next level. And it was wonderful to have that. But I think with his energy and with the course, it happens for people without being right next to him. Yeah. And that's an amazing thing. That in itself is really amazing
Um,
to replicate himself. Yeah.
Janet, you were also a trainer of art of living teachers. Um, what what qualities, according to you, make a good teacher?
Humility and really wanting to put the knowledge out there, having it be so important in your life that you want it to grow. And Yeah, many people have come to be very good teachers.
And how do you see the growth of the organization back then? And what would be your advice to those who are like art of living teacher trainers in today's landscape?
I don't know that it's different. Is it different? Um, I think it's not to concentrate or focus on how many or how successful or any of that, but just feeling that deep love in your heart and wanting to communicate it and have it grow in everybody's hearts. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not out there teaching today. Everybody's too busy.
And in the art of living, Janelle, we also had this component of music, bhajans, kirtans. Um, from a psychology point of view standpoint, how do you feel about the value of music and how it makes us feel and the transformation music could bring about in us?
It brings you together, brings everybody making tones with each other. Great feeling, very much needed in the world, wouldn't you say? Yeah. And it can be very transformative.
Well, thank you. And um, last question, would you like to close with any other words of wisdom, Janelle?
Love is what it's about. And any place that helps you or anything that helps you drop what stands in the way of you expressing your real nature, which is love, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And somebody said, children do that naturally. I'm not sure children do that naturally. Children are very spontaneous, they're very creative, but I don't know that they know how much love is inside of them in order to project it out. And I think they all need to find out, as well as older people, because obviously older people can benefit from learning that. But I think children can too. And I'm glad that a lot of Art of Living teachers are reaching out to children today to start there. Mm.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jen. It's been a great pleasure talking to you today. Um, and thank you for sharing from your heart. Um, it was really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank, thank you.